Today we have, it's going to be taking place, the story's taking place in Israel, but at this same time period, a couple of weeks back, we taught that, that the church was growing in Antioch, and that the apostles sent Barnabas up and told him to check up on it. And then Barnabas sends Saul to help him out. And then you have these people, these were the same people that was starting a church in Antioch, which we taught that it was an immoral city, but it was a place that these same people that was starting is the same people that Saul had dissipated, that he would persecute them and they ran north. Yeah. So these are the same people, and I sort of wondered, like Barnabas, sometimes I wonder if Paul was sort of beating himself up, maybe, thinking, I persecuted the church, but come over here, Paul or Saul, and let me show you the same people that you might have persecuted and ran north, what's happening. Because the Bible does say they took the gospel with them. Yeah. So this is happening. What's happening right now is what's happening in Antioch. So you have the same, this same stories happening at the same time. And then as I taught last week, you had Herod, and this is this same Herod that we're talking about in this. He was the grandson of Herod the Great. And if anybody knew Herod the Great, he was the one that tried to kill baby Jesus. Yeah. And then he's the nephew of Herod Antipas. He helped send Jesus to the cross. So they have a good family, strong tree of persecuting Christians, the church, and anything associated with Jesus. So, and Zach did a good job, in doing his lesson with only like five verses. I mean, sometimes that's hard to do with only 5 verses to bring out a whole lesson, and he did a fabulous job. So, Herod killed James. He's the first apostle that had been killed and martyred as the apostle. We know Stephen was killed and martyred, but he wasn't one of the founding 12. Right. But James was, and he was the first. Now, all through the Bible, there's no the Bible doesn't tell how the other apostles died, but you can research and find out. But James was the only one recorded in the Bible. And and I can imagine James being the first, and like Zach had taught, here you got James and John, they were brothers. They wanted to be who's the highest, who ranks the highest. They was in a sort of a competition. Yeah. And and Jesus asked them, "Are you ready to drink from the cup that I'm going to drink from?" Paraphrasing. And James and both of them said, "Yeah, Lord." They didn't realize what they were saying. No. But James was the first to drink of that cup. He gave his life. Historians record that his testimony was so great before he died that the guard that was standing next to him gave his life to Jesus, and he was killed with James. That's how he didn't go as a whipped pup. He stood strong, and he was a witness until the very end. So now we have ourselves at verse. We'll start 5. It says, Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. So the church knew right then, here you got James had been killed and martyred, and now Peter. What Herod was was thinking, and Herod was over the Jews. He was the ruler. He was the king. And all of a sudden, his numbers started going up. You know, just like today's political people, they have their poll numbers, and how much they're favored, how much they're not favored, if they're doing a good job. Herod's numbers started going up. He said, "Boy, if my numbers are going up over the killing of James, I'm going to give him Peter," because Peter was the top of the 12. So he thought, my numbers is going to shoot through the roof. So I'm going to really make myself a lot better, because at the same time, not all Jews, not all Jews still think that, Jesus was the Messiah. And so when they killed James, his numbers went up. So he thought, I'll give him Peter. I'm going to really pad myself up. So, and when Herod would have brought him forth the same night, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. So he had bound Peter. Usually they only bound one, but they had two. And in Zach, when he taught, it said 4 quaternions of soldiers. Well, 4 quaternions is 16 soldiers, but they used 4 every 3 hours. So every 3 hours, there'd be a new group of 4 soldiers come into that cell. So every 3 hours, 2 more men would check themselves to Peter, one at the first gate, second, then you had the main gate.
Man,
so it's like they upped the security on Peter. So, but at the same time, you got the church what? They were praying without ceasing. It says, and behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison. And he smote Peter on the side, and raised him up, saying, arise up quickly, and his chains fell off from his hand. So here you are. I don't know. Peter was asleep. Yep. Every 3 hours, they're waking him up, chaining yourself to another 2 group of men. But old Peter was asleep.
Yep. That's peace. And
he had peace about himself. He knew what happened to John.
Yeah.
He knew that, absent from the body, be present with the Lord.
Yeah.
He knew that there would be a time sometime in his life that this was going to happen. Yeah. If this was the time, then I'm ready to meet the Lord. Right. He had that peace about him that I'm going to home. So he was asleep. An angel had to even poke him. Yeah. Here you are it's probably in the lower part. Usually the jail cells is in the lower part. And the angel had to poke him to wake him up.
Sound asleep. Praise the Lord.
And the angel said unto him, gird thyself, and bind on thy sandals. And so he did, and he saith unto him, cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true, which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. It was like Peter was half asleep. He didn't know how he knew what was happening, but he was like dazed in a half sleep thing. He had to wake him up, put your stuff on, because the chains just fell off of him. The guards was probably asleep too. But he said, put your stuff on, come on. And he was walking through, and he said, it was like a vision to him, like if he was daydreaming. Like he was asleep, and see, how you have dreams, and sometimes you wake up and think, did this really happen? Did this happen? Was this yesterday, or did this happen to me? So that's how Peter felt during this whole time. And when they were past the first and the second ward, they came up unto the iron gate that leadeth unto the city, which opened to them of his own accord. So on accord, the Greek word for that is, let's see, automatically, which is automatically. So it just opened up. Whatever chain might have been on it or whatever that, it's like you would have a garage door opener clicker and you just pushed it and the gate opened up. No, there was no struggle, and it just opened on its own. And they went out and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. So here you have Peter. He's going through this place. He's went out of the prison. He passed the 2 guards that was with him. Chains fell off.
Thank you, that.
He went by 2 more guards because they were at 2 more gates, the smaller doors. The Bible doesn't say how he went by them, but he just walked right by. Then you get to the gate, and God opened it up automatically. And then once he gets through, the angel's gone. Angel had put him into a safe place, to where he could get on his own. So, and when Peter was come to himself, he said, "Now I know of surety that the Lord hath sent his angel and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews." See, the Jews thought they was going to kill him, but and I sort of look at, the Lord hath sent his angel and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod. He was appreciative that God said, he sent him for me. He was touched by that because he knew what happened to James. And he thought, why didn't he give me the same fate that James did? But no, he spared me. Because I believe Peter had it already in his mind that while he was sitting there, chained to 2 men, that he was prepared mentally, that I'm ready to make that final step. Yeah. But no, they decided to save me. Because he probably felt undeserving of it.
Yeah.
And then we look back, it says, and we know that the church was earnestly praying for Peter, and you're thinking, well, what about James? Was Peter more righteous? Was Peter loved more? Or, why? And that's something that only God knows. That's something that, each of us in our own life will serve God in a different way. Some will have a place that you are in circumstances, and people will look upon you and see your circumstances and see that you're still praising God. And you'll be a witness and thinking, how can he do that?
Yeah.
Because they see the love that you have. Some will be a preacher. Some will be a teacher. Each one of us has a separate, different job, and how we live our life, people will see that in us. Some, like James, he died early, but he still showed the mercy and the love for Jesus, and he still got his message across, even to his death. It says, and when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. So here it is, we're talking early morning, in the middle of the night. They're praying. So he went to Mary's house, and John Mark is there. And John Mark is cousins with Barnabas. And we'll see more of John Mark. And he goes there, and they're praying. That's the one place he knew that he could go to find help or solitude, because he knew that's probably where the church would be. And it says, and as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate, for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. Now this is, we read this Bible thinking, thou shalt, it's all serious, but this is funny. Here you got, this is something like you would see in a comic, in a sitcom. Here you got some guy knocking on the door. She hears Peter's voice. She gets excited, and you're sit there. You're going to open the door, I just escaped from prison. Here shortly.
He was object of their prayer meeting there.
Yeah, I'm needing in, people. I got guards gonna be coming looking for me here soon. He's thinking I just walked past all of them, and he's sitting there knocking. She turns around and goes back and tells the others, and he's sitting there. He's persistent. He's still knocking, but he's thinking, Lord goodness, who answered this door? And they said, so she goes back to the body of the church there, and she says, and they said unto her, thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, it is his angel. So here's the church. What are they doing?
Praying.
They're praying ceasingly.
Specifically.
About him getting out of prison.
Come on.
God answers the prayer. They don't believe it. They're sitting there saying,
that sound like?
You're mad. You're mad, girl. This is serious. We got to be praying about Peter.
Don't carry on.
Peter's in prison. We got to pray, help pray, and let the Lord get him out of there.
Don't carry on with a bunch of foolishness.
Yeah, she said, and then after she said, no, it's Peter outside. And they said, well, Lord, he's already been killed. It's his angel, because they knew that, maybe it's like when Jesus died and was raised, that he came back and talked to them. They said, well, maybe it's his angel. But Peter continued to knock. And when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place. So he told them, keep it down. Yeah. He said, I got people. It's getting daylight probably. And he said, because what it was, Herod, this all happened at the last minute. This was happening right, probably at the crack of daylight before they would execute him. And he said, they told him just keep it down. Tell James, and then, when he says tell James, this is James, this is Jesus' brother. So I gotta go. And Peter was probably the head of this ministry. So that would lead us to think that maybe James was second to Peter at this time. So he said, tell James, because he's the man in charge right now. I gotta go. Because if he stayed there, he was afraid that they'd start looking for him. If they found him into that, they would kill all of them probably. And just give him more of a reason for harboring a escaped prisoner. So he said, tell James, I got to go. This is the last time we hear of Peter in Acts. With Luke writing in Acts that this is the last time that we hear of Peter. And it says, and when Herod had sought for him, and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea and Caesarea and there abode. So they looked for him, couldn't find him. So they probably didn't know what time of the hour it was. He probably asked them all what happened, and they all had the same story. He didn't go by me. He didn't go by me.
You're right.
And Herod kills him.
Thank you.
16 men died for one man wanting to persecute a godly man. Sometimes when you have a tyrant or a dictator that is so bent on persecuting the church, when they persecute the church, it don't stop there. They'll persecute anybody that gets in their way or different of how they want things to go. And we'll read in the next lesson of what happens to Herod later. But I look at this lesson and we you know, I just keep remembering, you know, Peter knocking on the door, you know, wanting in. And they didn't think it was Peter. There's another man who knocks on the door of every soul in this world. And he keeps knocking. When you don't want to believe,
Come on.
when you don't think you need him, when you don't believe that this is the way, but he keeps knocking. People will tell you you're crazy for wanting to do it. People will say they don't believe it, but he keeps knocking.
Keeps knocking.
And just like Rhoda opened the door to Peter to let him in, Jesus wants you to let him in.
Yeah.
Because he stands at that door knocking. If you just give him a chance, he'll change your life forever. He'll make the crooked way straight. And just like James and Peter, it's not going to be, I can't say you give your life to Christ that your life was going to be perfect, or you're not going to have persecution, or you're not going to have loss. James' life was short. Stephen's was short. They both had an impact. And I'm not going to say that giving your heart to Jesus is going to make everything all good. Your finances, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be that. But you will have the peace of mind that when you're sitting in the jail cell and you're shackled up to two men that they are going to kill you when the morning breaks, that you can sit there and sleep. That I promise you that Jesus will give. He'll give you the peace and love and joy that no man can give you, no dollar amount can give you, nothing. You can't have a fancier home or a nice job that can give you the peace and sound mind that Jesus Christ will give you. And he stands at that door and he knocks. Thank you.
Wait a minute, Toby.